There is a moment in Goodfellas where Ray Liotta laughs so hard it looks like he is about to pass out. Film scholars call it one of the greatest pieces of acting in American cinema. But the other actors at that table had no idea what was about to happen. Scorsese kept the exchange out of their scripts on purpose, so the fear you see on their faces is real. And the material Pesci was working from came from his own life, from a connected guy he waited on years before he ever made a movie. That last detail is the one that changes everything. Because the funny house scene in Goodfellas was not invented by a screenwriter sitting at a desk in Hollywood. It was not in Nicholas Pileggi's book. It was not even in the original screenplay. It came from a moment when Joe Pesci, working tables as a young man, said the wrong thing to the wrong person and learned exactly how thin the line is between a compliment and a threat. Pesci was born in Newark in 1943. His father, Angelo, worked as a forklift driver and bartender. His mother, Mary, was a barber, working-class Italian-American family in a working-class neighborhood. By the time he was 5, he was appearing in New York stage productions. At 10, he became a regular on a television variety show called StarTime Kids. This was the trajectory of a child entertainer, the kind of kid who gets shuffled through auditions and performances until something sticks or the phone stops ringing. For Pesci, the phone stopped ringing. Show business dried up. By the 1960s, he was cutting hair in a barbershop following in his mother's trade. He played guitar in bands on the side, including Joey D and the Starlighters, working stages across New Jersey for modest pay and no fame. In 1968, he released an album called Little Joe Sure Can Sing under the stage name Joe Ritchie. Nobody bought it. The album vanished. Another dead end in a career that was supposed to have started when he was 5 years old. What came next is what made him the actor he became. Pesci did not just fail at music, he failed at his first real attempt at movies too, and the way he handled that failure shaped everything. In 1976, he landed a role in a low-budget crime film called The Death Collector. He played a volatile enforcer. The performance was raw and magnetic. This was supposed to be his breakthrough, the moment when Hollywood finally noticed. Instead, the film disappeared. The reviews were thin, the distribution was non-existent. Pesci watched what should have been a starting point become another wall. So he did what a lot of struggling actors do. When Hollywood does not call back, he got a regular job. He moved above Amici's restaurant in the Bronx and worked there to pay the bills. He was in his mid-30s, watching the acting career he had chased since he was 5 fade into something he used to talk about. But the moment that would eventually define him hadn't happened at Amici's. It had happened years earlier when he was still a young man, waiting tables and hoping for a break that wasn't coming. One night, a connected guy was eating at his section. The man was holding court, telling stories, making jokes about his exploits. The table was laughing. The guy was the center of attention, the way wise guys like to be when they're in public. Pesci was young and working for tips. He wanted to be friendly. So when the mobster finished a story, Pesci offered what he thought was an innocent compliment. He told the man he was funny. The room temperature dropped. The mobster stopped talking. The table went silent. And then, in a voice that could freeze blood, the connected guy asked Pesci what exactly he meant by that. Was he a clown? Was he there to amuse him? What did Pesci think was so funny about him? Think about what that actually meant. A 20-something kid waiting tables had just implied that a made guy was an entertainer. In that world, that's not a compliment. Being funny means you're not being taken seriously. It means someone sees you as a joke instead of a threat. And for men who built their entire identity around being feared, that's not something you let slide. Nobody knows exactly how the exchange ended. Some sources say the mobster was testing Pesci the whole time, letting the tension stretch before cracking a smile and buying him a drink. Others say it was a real eruption, the kind of moment that could have ended with Pesci in serious trouble. The ambiguity is part of what makes the story so effective, because when Pesci eventually recreated the moment on film, he kept that same uncertainty. You never know if Tommy DeVito is joking or about to kill someone. Neither does anyone else in the room. Neither does Tommy himself. That ambiguity is the entire point. Real violence does not announce itself with a musical cue. It shows up while you are still trying to figure out if the other guy is playing around. The break, when it finally came, didn't come from the restaurant. It came from the film everyone had forgotten. In 1979, Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro were casting Raging Bull. Someone showed them The Death Collector, the film that had failed 3 years earlier. They saw something in Pesci's performance. They called him and asked if he wanted to play Joey LaMotta, the brother of boxer Jake LaMotta. Pesci took the role. He was brilliant. He earned his first Oscar nomination. Suddenly, the guy who couldn't get anyone to return his calls was getting scripts sent directly to his apartment. And for the next decade, he built a reputation as one of the most intense character actors working in American cinema. Home Alone in 1990, My Cousin Vinny in 1992, Lethal Weapon sequels. The former waiter was now a genuine movie star. By 1989, Scorsese was adapting Wise Guy, Nicholas Pileggi's nonfiction book about Henry Hill and the Lucchese crime family. The movie would be called Goodfellas. De Niro was attached to play Jimmy Conway. Liotta would play Henry Hill, and Scorsese wanted Pesci for Tommy DeVito, the volcanic enforcer who could shift from charm to murder in the same breath. Here is where the story turns. According to multiple reports, Pesci had a condition. He told Scorsese he would do the film if the director would include one scene that Pesci would act out personally, because it had actually happened to him. Pesci performed the restaurant encounter for Scorsese. He showed the director exactly how the mobster had responded, the temperature change in the room, the challenge in the voice, the way everyone else at the table froze. Scorsese immediately recognized it. This was the moment that would define Tommy DeVito. The most dangerous man at any table gets told he is funny by Henry Hill. And for 60 agonizing seconds, nobody knows if Henry is going to laugh his way out of it or die in a restaurant booth. Scorsese's approach to filming it was surgical. He had Pesci and Liotta improvise the scene 4 or 5 times in rehearsal, riffing off each other and building variations while a tape recorder captured every word. Then Scorsese transcribed the tapes, selected the lines that worked best, and locked them into the final screenplay. But he didn't give those pages to anyone else on set. When cameras rolled, the other actors at the table were working from a completely different script. They had no idea the exchange was coming. When the mood shifts, their confusion and discomfort are genuine reactions, not performances. When Tommy's voice turns cold and he asks Henry what's so funny about him, you can see the body language change at every seat. Those reactions aren't acting. They're people who genuinely didn't know if Joe Pesci was still in character or if something had gone wrong. Scorsese's camera work amplified the effect. He shot the entire scene in medium shots, avoiding close-ups entirely. He wanted the audience to see Tommy and Henry in relation to the people around them. You don't just watch Pesci deliver the line. You watch a room full of wise guys hold their breath and calculate whether they're about to witness a killing. The scene was filmed at the Hawaii Kai restaurant, a Polynesian tiki bar at 50th and Broadway in Times Square that had stood for nearly 40 years. The kitschy bamboo decor became the Bamboo Lounge. Crew members have said the laughter you hear when the tension finally breaks was partly real, that people on set couldn't always tell when the danger was supposed to be acting and when it wasn't. And then, just as everyone starts laughing, Tommy cracks a bottle over the club owner's head for an unpaid tab. That's the punchline. The funny how exchange wasn't comic relief. It was a preview. Tommy's capacity for sudden violence was always there. He was just waiting for a reason to let it out, or no reason at all. That sequence captures everything Scorsese was trying to say about mob life, the suits and the camaraderie, and the jokes around the dinner table. All of it is window dressing. Underneath runs a baseline of terror that never goes away. Henry Hill's exaggerated laugh isn't really joy. He's laughing because failing to laugh might get him killed. He's laughing because Tommy's watching to see who finds him funny and who doesn't. Liotta understood this completely. Film analysts have dissected that laugh for decades. It looks absurd on the surface, over the top, almost like he's mocking the scene itself. But watch it again, knowing what you know now. Henry Hill is calculating in real time. He's watching Tommy's face, reading every micro-expression, adjusting his performance to stay alive. That's not comedy, that's terror in a suit. The real Tommy DeSimone was even worse than the movie version. He earned the nickname Tommy Two Guns for the matching pearl-handled pistols he carried. He was tied to at least 5 murders. Billy Batts, the Gambino soldier whose beating appears in Goodfellas, Michael Gianco, a kid nicknamed Spider, who got shot for not bringing drinks fast enough. Parnell Edwards, shot in the head for not destroying the getaway vehicle after the Lufthansa heist. That heist, in December of 1978, pulled about $5 million in cash and another $875,000 in jewelry out of the Lufthansa cargo terminal at JFK, close to $6 million total. Largest cash robbery on American soil at the time. The crew made headlines around the world. DeSimone was part of it, standing guard while others loaded the money. But his luck ran out a few weeks later. The Gambino family wanted payback for Billy Batts. DeSimone had killed a made member without commission approval. That's not a mistake the families forgive. You kill one of theirs without permission, they kill one of yours. Early in 1979, DeSimone disappeared. His body was never found. He was somewhere around 30 years old, depending on which account you believe. Some sources say John Gotti himself pulled the trigger. Nobody knows for certain because nobody talks about it. Pesci was 46 when he played DeSimone as a much younger man. The real Tommy was tall and muscular. Pesci is small, compact, not physically intimidating at first glance. And yet, watching the film, you never think about that gap. The performance is so completely inhabiting the volatility that size becomes irrelevant. You believe Pesci could kill everyone at the table because he makes you believe it in every frame. At the 63rd Academy Awards in March of 1991, Pesci won Best Supporting Actor for Tommy DeVito. His acceptance speech became nearly as famous as the scene itself. He walked to the podium, looked at the statue, and said 5 words, "It's my privilege." Thank you. One of the shortest speeches in Oscar history. No long list of names, no tears, no effusive gratitude to agents and managers and God, just a guy who had waited tables, cut hair, played bars, and failed at movies, standing on stage, holding the thing he'd been chasing his entire working life. If you want to see what restraint looks like from a man who specializes in playing people with no restraint, watch that speech. The funny how scene went on to become one of the most quoted moments in American film history. The phrase entered daily vocabulary. The gif of Liotta's laugh circulates online as a reaction meme, usually deployed to mock someone who said something stupid. Most of the people sharing it have no idea they're passing around an image of terror disguised as amusement. The irony would make Scorsese smile. The most remarkable thing about this whole story is the architecture of it. A young man says something careless to a dangerous person. That mistake becomes a memory. He carries the memory for years. While his career rises and falls and rises again, the memory becomes a scene. The scene wins an Oscar. And decades later, strangers on the internet deploy it to express mock agreement without knowing where it came from. That's not how creative work usually happens. Actors usually don't live through their best material. They read it on a page written by someone else. Pesci's carried that restaurant encounter for years, waiting for the right moment to use it. And when Scorsese finally gave him the chance, he turned a real brush with danger into cinema that outlasted everyone involved. The real Joe Pesci encountered a mobster and survived to tell the story. The fictional Tommy DeVito did not survive. The real Tommy DeSimone was killed for doing what wise guys do, which is exactly what the movie shows. The violence catches up. The lifestyle ends one way. Pesci retired from acting in 1999. He came back for Scorsese's The Irishman in 2019, playing another mobster in another story about men who didn't live long enough to spend what they stole. He was 76 years old, still the same restraint, still the same danger behind the eyes. If you've ever quoted that scene at a bar or shared the gif or used funny how to needle a friend, you were quoting something real, not a screenplay invented by a writer at a desk. A moment when a kid who wanted to be polite almost got himself hurt by a man who didn't want to be seen as entertainment. That's what mob culture was, and it's what Goodfellas captured better than any film before or since. The glamour and the danger weren't separate worlds you could keep apart. They sat in the same room at the same table, often inside the same sentence, and a guy who was laughing with you could turn on you before the laugh finished. That's why one scene on a restaurant set became one of the most quoted moments in American crime cinema. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. I dig up the real history behind the movies every week,